feel very called to become a member of the Catholic Church.
Love the Catholic Church. It's just the best place to be.
From the studios of EWTN, this is Open Line. In North America, call toll-free 1-800-585-9396. That's 1-800-585-9396. Outside North America, call 1-205-271-2985. You can also send an email to openline@ewtn.com.
Welcome to Open Line Tuesday on the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network. We're so glad you took some time out of your day to join us. Barbara McGuigan is in the house. We're talking issues of life. If you've got a question for Barbara, the number's 1-800-585-9396. That's toll-free anywhere in North America, 1-800-585-9396. If you're outside the United States and Canada, your number is 1-205-271-2985, and we will put you straight to the front of the line at 1-205-271-2985. Or you can send us an email, openline@ewtn.com. I'm Jack Williams. The lovely and talented Elena Rodriguez produces the program, and your call screener is amateur apologist, Mr. Matt Gubensky. And our host, as she is every single Tuesday, is
Jack,
our blonde warrior of life, Goldilocks for the pro-life movement, if you will, Miss Barbara McGuigan. Barbara, how are you?
I couldn't be better. The way you say that every Tuesday.
Every Tuesday.
It sounds like a bad omen, Jack.
No, it's a testimony to your staunch determination and steadfast relentlessness. Is what it is. You know, I introduced Dr. Ray Garendi at a pro-life event not too long ago, and I told him that Dr. Ray has taken one of the most influential stands for life that I've ever seen, because when Roe v. Wade was passed in 1973, he took a vow at that moment that he has stuck by to this day, that regardless of how out of fashion it becomes, he will not shave his mustache, and he has vowed to keep that pledge and has done so to this time, and all I hear now are crickets, and I thought that was a pretty good joke.
Well, that's real commitment.
They
then,
laughed
isn't
at
it?
they laughed at the event. Maybe it's a visual. That's probably what the problem is.
Well, you know, it's an ominous topic, and so many things are happening today because I didn't think when Pope John Paul II, now Saint, talked about the culture of death, that it would become even more so. I mean, how could it have gotten
I mean, that
worse?
wasn't too terribly long ago, and if you had described the events of the headlines of today, then they would have seemed absurd just that short a time ago.
That's exactly right. But now it has just really been pumped up. I don't know what you say, but it has gotten incredibly worse, and the culture has gotten even demonic in certain instances, and I'm telling you, it's just so. I mean, obviously, this is a more serious show than if you want to just, have a lot of giggles. This probably wouldn't be the Tuesday show that you would turn to listen to. But if you want to become informed, so you have to know your enemy, and you have to be able to, fight for the good. Yes.
Absolutely.
And that's what we do.
So I put you on the spot last week, and I asked you what was going on in your great state of California. And be careful what you ask for, huh? Because you've done your homework and you've brought...
Well, I mean, Jack, here's the thing. It's going on in many states well.
That's exactly right.
And exactly all over the United States. What just came up, and like I say, let the games begin. The federal government is about to pay doctors to tell patients about the type of medical care they want when they are, quote, near death. And this isn't just about Medicare and Medicaid patients. It's the very first step. Remember, we talked about IPAB, the independent advisory boards that were going to decide who was going to get certain care and who would not get certain care. Well, this is the first step. And the rule announced just last Friday, just a few days ago, by the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Service, they will reimburse, starting January 1st, 2016, healthcare providers if they have conversations with Medicare patients about advanced planning, also known as end-of-life discussions. And this was an article in the Wall Street Journal that talks about this. They're calling them kill yourself talks because end-of-life discussions are likely to lower health care spending, which is about cutting the cost for the government of patient care, individual patient care. And so when the Wall Street Journal says the current government-controlled crony health insurance sector will also benefit from these kill yourself talks, and of course my guess is that when you begin to pay somebody for a particular behavior that's directed towards someone else, in this case what they call proper end-of-life behavior, the government is attempting, and this is just, again, you think you hit the bottom of the birdcage a long time ago and then something else comes up. The government is attempting to incentivize the acceptance of whatever the person is pushing, okay? They're going to reimburse healthcare providers, okay? And in this case, we're talking about assisted suicide or active euthanasia. So, I mean, this is big, and it doesn't pay to close your eyes and say, I would rather not talk about that, because you have to be aware of what's going on. And when you see how serious, he wasn't an exorcist. I have to clarify that, Jack. I had Father Mike Driscoll on. He wrote the book Demons, Deliverance, and Discernment, and he was on the Good Fight this past Saturday. And we mentioned Father Gary Thomas because he is an exorcist for the Diocese of San Jose in California. And, he actually says that regarding the decline of morality, which causes a rise in demonic activity, he said abortion is a doorway to the demonic because it involves the destruction of an innocent human being. Okay, we get that. But he said the new law in California, which I'm just talking about, which legalizes assisted suicide, is also a doorway for the same reason. This decline in morality, he said, is growing rapidly and provides the opportunity for Satan to have a foothold in a family's life. He said, I do not believe that most people who are believers in choice realize this. That is part of the seduction of Satan, who will disguise his presence in these choices. So there you go. I mean, it's all very serious, granted, and I love to laugh, as you know. But, boy, when I saw this and then I read this and how he hooked it up, and then when you look about it, the supervision of euthanasia is breaking down in Belgium. It has been legal since, I think, 2005, something like that. It's not being adequately monitored, even by the loose local standards. And bottom line is that even though control has manifestly broken down where doctors are supposed to report, but, they're supposed to report to a panel, right? But that whole system has broken down now, and the commission has basically lost its mandate. And now, in this system, the doctors continue to euthanize their patients at the rate of at least 5 a day. And this is the system that Belgium's voted for in 2002. That's what the year was. I don't know. I don't think they realize what they were voting for. So, it's serious.
We speculated when we first started talking about this that if it wouldn't take long for the right to die to become the duty to die.
Exactly.
And that's exactly what we're seeing in this legislation.
And you are exactly right. But, if you're going to bring up a serious problem, then come up with a solution, for Pete's sake. And so when Governor Jerry Brown signed this law, the End of Life Option Act, it was called, what he was saying is that physicians had to prescribe life-ending drugs to patients who are determined to have a terminal illness and less than 6 months to live. And, okay, that's how they start out. Put it that way. And then you have someone else who's saying that people, this is another, what's her name? Yuka Varelius. She wrote an article on the moral acceptability of physician-assisted dying for non-autonomous psychiatric patients. Now she's saying, and now they're all trying to say, that if you have any kind of mental distress, even though you haven't requested assisted suicide, Compassion & Choices, the former Hemlock Society, right? They want this legislation to go all the way where you will be put to death, quote, death with dignity, right? With the plastic bag over your head and pills. That you will be, subject to this, whether you want it or not. That's what happens. This is why this is so serious. And my good friend, Dr. Aaron Cariotti, he's the Associate Professor of Psychiatry and Director of the Program in Medical Ethics at UC Irvine here in California, Southern California. He just said that this law was an enormous culture shift in our country. But he said it's also changing the culture of medicine from a focus on saving lives to helping end them. So he believes that we have to work even harder at rolling this law back. Sometimes you think you've got a law going on and you think it's forever. But what Dr. Cariotti is saying is we have to roll this back, and there are ways that we can roll it back. But I'm sure you want to get to a good break.
Well, you said earlier that we've hit the bottom of the birdcage, and clearly it's about time to change the newspaper at the bottom of the birdcage. And we want to hear how you would do that by calling us at 1-800-585-9396. Toll free anywhere in North America, 1-800-585-9396 with your questions or comments for our pro-life warrior, Barbara McGuigan. Open Line Tuesday on EWTN.
From EWTN News Nightly in Washington, D.C., I'm Brian Patrick with your EWTN News Link. With the GOP struggling for direction, Paul Ryan gets his first shot at emerging as a strong leader. The newly elected Speaker of the House addresses national media today, trying to show a more unified party. Houston voters decided the so-called HERO ordinance today. Supporters say it protects gay and transgender people from discrimination. Opponents say that it opens the door for sexual predators to enter women's restrooms. The company behind the Keystone XL pipeline asked the State Department to suspend its review of the project. TransCanada says it needs more time to work on the pipeline route through Nebraska. Pipeline opponents claim TransCanada is delaying, hoping a Republican is elected president next year. Only 10 of the 224 victims are now identified in the weekend Russian plane crash in Egypt. A Russian official says the remains of more of the victims are being flown back to Russia today. Watch EWTN News Nightly tonight.
Christ gives you a second chance.
Get a fresh look and a second take on life.
Through the eyes of faith, love, and mercy. Take two.
Take two
with Jerry and Debbie.
Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. Weekdays, noon and midnight Eastern on the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network.
Podcasts of Open Line are available within 24 hours of live broadcast. Go to EWTN.com and click on Multimedia.
Howdy, this is Jimmy Aiken from Catholic Answers Live. Thanks for listening to the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network.
This is Open Line on the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network. If you have a question or comment, call 1-800-585-9396. Outside North America, call 1-205-271-2985 or send an email to openline@ewtn.com.
EWTN radio programming is heard on great stations around the United States, like 88.5 FM in New Bedford, Massachusetts, 88.9 FM in Aberdeen and Ipswich, South Dakota, and 1480 AM right here in Birmingham, Alabama. I've got Aberdeen and Ipswich, South Dakota, and I mess up Aberdeen. That's par for the course for me. So let's go to the phones, Barbara, if that's all right. Our leadoff hitter today is Victor in Spokane, Washington. Victor, you're on with Barbara McGuigan.
Hi, Victor.
Hi, thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
And this doesn't apply to taking a life of someone sick. This question relates to one of abortion. Years ago when I was in Kansas, the Menninger Clinic had a big article, Whatever Happened to Sin, and there's been a reluctance to tag a sin on a candidate or a someone going for political office. The question is this: there are two sins for a voter that I was able to look up and find. One was sin of complicity, and the other consent. So if I knew a candidate was a baby killer, a pro-abortion, a staunch one, even to fund it, that belonged to one party, and the other person competitively running against him for that same office was a strident pro-lifer, what sin would that be? And would that be a mortal sin if I voted for the one who was against the life? In other words, was pro-abortion.
Okay, that's a very good question, Victor. And
Barbara McGuigan, master theologian, go.
That I am not, but I do know this, that if you have full knowledge, okay, because there are certain qualifications for a mortal sin. It has to be a serious sin. You have to know that it's a serious sin, and you have to give full consent of the will to this sin. Okay, those are the qualifications for a sin to be mortal.
So you
right?
are a theologian.
Thank you. If you, not really, and every Catholic should know that. But if you are fully aware, you have full knowledge that the person that you are voting for is vociferously pro-abortion, for you to make sure with your vote that he gets or she gets into office is a very serious sin. Now, again, you have to know, you have to understand that this is a serious sin, that it makes you an accomplice with evil. I mean, come on. No one needs to be a brain surgeon to figure that one out. It doesn't seem to me. So, and there were people get confused sometimes by what some people say, that, oh, well, it's just kind of a proportional thing. You like the other parts of his campaign that you or her campaign that you believe are good. You like that, what he or she's going to do for the economy. That's not good enough, because life is the most fundamental, pivotal issue. You can't put life on the same plane with the economy, even with war, whatever it is. Life is supreme, and we always have to vote to protect human life and to uphold that teaching of the church. Okay, Victor?
Well, I wanted to ask you one thing. That problem then transfers over to the hierarchy. There I mean, I've been, or we can tell. I mean, we had this discussion in the 40s, and I minored in philosophy, and now here we are, and we haven't heard those words from the pulpit or in writing. Except what prompted the question was, I finally found it in the Sunday Visitor.
Good.
A priest addressed that, and I take 4 or 5 publications. Never has that ever come up or been addressed. And we talked daily after Mass about when's this issue going to come up, and then somebody said, call it in. So I took the liberty of calling in, and you were so kind to take my call. I don't know how you're going to answer that last one, but there is a great deal of difficulty with our clerics.
And you are absolutely correct, Victor. You are absolutely correct, and this is most unfortunate. And we can't judge their motives, we can't judge their souls. All we can do is judge their actions and speak to them, but more importantly, to pray and fast that they get the picture. Because there has been plenty of different members of the clergy who have spoken out, just like I have. I've heard it from my pulpit. Not every pulpit can you hear this, though, and that's unfortunate. And I think they have different reasons for not bringing it up, but I think so often it involves the fact that they don't want to upset or offend anyone. They don't want to. Many times they don't even want to bring up the word abortion because they're afraid it might offend someone in the pews who's had one or who facilitated one. And this is so sad, because how will they ever bring God's healing love and forgiveness to this person if they never bring it up? There's such a way to bring it up, because again, you can't even judge. We can't judge anyone, not even ourselves, right? Only God knows our hearts. And this is what is most important. But we must judge actions.
Okay? Thank you, Victor. Appreciate the phone call. We'll head now to Denver, Colorado. Mike, listening on Denver Catholic Radio, AM 1060. Mike, you're on with Barbara McGuigan.
Hi, Mike.
Thank you for having me. And the last answer you gave was excellent. And I just thought I'd give you my experience. I'm a volunteer in a Christian-based hospice in Colorado. And 1 year ago, we had a symposium where there were about 200 volunteers, and we had a guest speaker who gave a presentation on a physician in Boulder, Colorado, who committed suicide when he had cancer by not eating or drinking water. Oh. And the person that made the video, the movie maker, was there as a speaker, and everyone treated her like a hero. And we broke into discussion groups, and only 2 people in my discussion group of 30 thought it was murder. And what are wrong with the clerics from the pulpit not telling their parishioners that it's wrong to do abortion and it's wrong to do euthanasia? That's my question. Thank you.
Well, it's a very good question. And once again, it depends on where you go. I'll tell you something. I had to leave a parish because, especially for my children and my husband at one time, well, they're still my children and my husband, but we had to leave the parish because they were not being fed. What they were being given is a whole kind of peace and justice message. 2 days before the first election, where President Obama was voted into office by 54% of Catholics who voted, the deacon was giving the sermon at that mass, and 2 days before the election, okay? And he started talking about capital punishment, which wasn't even on the ballot. There wasn't anything, not even in California, nowhere, that was on the ballot. And, all life is sacred, okay, we get all that. But we were getting ready to vote. People were confused. They didn't understand because they thought that we had a savior coming on to the political scene, and he was really going to straighten out everything, right? All the hopey, changey stuff. He was going to really change everything. Well, it didn't work out, because you cannot. It's very sad when you think that you would put into office someone who was going to facilitate someone who doesn't even believe, maybe, I can't say, possibly he doesn't believe that Planned Parenthood would even be involved in aborting, late-term abortions, and dissecting babies and harvesting their organs and sending them out for a price, right? He said that, there are people that don't believe that is offensive enough, even if they're doing it. Okay, so there's a lady who wants to have babies burned for energy. She's up in the Northern California or Seattle, that area up there. She thinks there's nothing wrong with using these aborted children for energy to heat the place. It's just the conscience, okay? Like St. Irenaeus said, a good conscience is equal to the shedding of blood. Okay? Those of us who have formed a well-formed conscience, we better get ready to suffer if you haven't already, because you will. But then you have all these poor souls who've never had the chance. They've never been schooled in the noble art of forming the individual, as Pope Benedict says. And that's why, a recent Pew Research poll that most Catholics in the U.S. hope for change in church rule on divorce and communion. They don't see anything wrong with using contraceptives, living with romantic partners outside of marriage, remarrying after divorce without an annulment, engaging in homosexual behavior, because they've never been formed in what is good, true, and holy. We could go on forever on this, eh, Jack?
We could. Thanks, Mike. Appreciate that phone call. Straight ahead, we'll talk to Margaret in Pennsylvania, Betty in Indiana, John in Texas, and Mary in Indiana. And we've got plenty of time for your phone calls at 1-800-585-9396, toll-free anywhere in North America. Open Line Tuesday with Barbara McGuigan.
For a complete list of the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network AM and FM stations across America, go to EWTN.com. Look for the radio pull-down menu and select AM/FM stations. The list is updated regularly, so visit often. Again, go to EWTN.com. Look for the radio pull-down menu and select AM/FM stations. Also at EWTN.com, you'll find out how to listen to us on the web, on shortwave, and in some countries on satellite. You'll find it all on EWTN.com.
60 Seconds with Father Mitch Pacwa.
The focus of the Eucharist needs to be Jesus Christ, body, blood, soul, and divinity present on that altar and being given to the people to receive into their minds, their hearts, their very bodies. And when Jesus is the center, he will form us into a proper community that you don't have to do because you feel good about each other. Because one of the great things about Christ is that he can form a community when you don't feel good about each other. Matter of fact, when you feel kind of rotten about the other people, he can still form into community. And if you don't believe me, read what the apostles were like when he's trying to form them into a community. This means that the parish is a community properly suited for the celebrating of the Eucharist.
The people you know and trust are on EWTN.
I invite people to tune in to Women of Grace Live if they want to be encouraged, if they want to be instructed, if they want to be inspired. These opportunities present themselves not only through what we have to share on the air, but through the many calls that come in through our listeners. I am always amazed at how my own faith is edified through what our listeners share with us. I'm Janet Benkovic, inviting you to join me weekday mornings at 11 Eastern for Women of Grace on the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network.
This is Open Line on the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network. If you have a question or comment, call 1-800-585-9396. Outside North America, call 1-205-271-2985 or send an email to openline@ewtn.com.
Tonight on Mother Angelica Live Classics, Mother talks about the great prophet Elijah. That's tonight at 8 Eastern on EWTN Television. And tomorrow night on EWTN Live, Father Mitch will welcome Father John Horgan, who will invite Catholics to pray for reparations. That's tomorrow at 8 Eastern on EWTN Television. Back to the phones we go. Margaret's in Pennsylvania listening on AM 720. Margaret, thanks for calling. You're on with Barbara McGuigan.
Hi, Margaret.
Hi, Barbara. Thank you for taking my call. Sure. I just want to share my experience with my mother, who was placed in a nursing home, and I was with her every day. She was in a place where she needed more care than what they were able to provide, and I knew that was going to happen, but our hands were tied at the time, and we had called hospice in to solely assist my mom at meals, because I was told that with hospice they would be able to give my mom more time at each meal. And I thought if you could just spend an hour with my mom at one meal, that would be fine. As soon as they were on, these new medications started to be administered to my mom without me knowing it. And I would know immediately. I saw my mom every day, and the one day I went in, and her lips were huge. She couldn't hold a straw. She couldn't keep anything in her mouth. And immediately I knew something was a medication was given to her. And I had asked, why was that given to her? Well, to make her comfortable. And I said, well, she's having a reaction. Then there was another medication prescribed, and she had another bad reaction. And I think that if I weren't there to see these changes happen, it would have just been let go. She would have continued to get the medication even though she was having these bad reactions. And inevitably what had happened, she was given a medication that her body just started to shut down. And every medication that I questioned, it was to make her comfortable. And I feel that having hospice come in, I'm sad to say, I felt they just expedited her death. And I heard all these wonderful things about hospice, but with my mother, I feel that they completely expedited to death her death. And I just wanted to share that because it was just not a good experience for me. And I want others to know that if they get hospice on or put their parent or family in a nursing home, they have to be there every day. And even with me there every day, I was still not in control of what was being done.
Was she, Margaret, I'm very sorry to hear that.
Thank you.
That is so sad. Was she in the dying process? I mean, was she in pain? Why were they giving her the medicine?
She had fallen at home, and she did not want to go to the nursing home, and we ended up taking her to the emergency room, and she wasn't seen in an hour and a half. She said, take me home, take me home. But we felt she needed medical care because she had terrible skin tears, and she had bruises all over her face from falling. I didn't witness the fall, and it's a long story, but she did get medical treatment, and then from the hospital, we had to send her to a home because she had to show that she was able to go home. And then once she was in the home for pain, there were 2 medications that were prescribed that the family agreed upon. But then, as time went on, they started to add these other medications, and I saw immediate changes. And I said, why is this happening? And she was being cared for as far as the pain, but why they were administering these other medications, solely what I know is to make her comfortable. And I feel that it was to expedite her death because she was getting treated for the pain.
This is why we want Catholic hospices. You know, it's critically important. And we do have great people. Dr. Brian Kopp, K-O-P-P, if you just put him in the search. And Bobby Schindler's involved with this, Terry Schiavo's brother, Julie Grimstad, Mary Kellett. These are all great people that are working to get a whole network of Catholic hospices. But, you know, whenever you call hospice in, basically, I think maybe you didn't have enough time to sit down with the hospice person to say, look, you know, we don't want you to overdose mom so she's gone within 24 hours. You know, and not to say that they're not all hospices that are like this. You had a bad experience, and people do have bad experiences. But before we called them in from my dad, you know, we made sure, and of course we were with him. It was a vigil, basically. It was a vigil. But when his organs started shutting down and he couldn't breathe, that's when they started to administer very low doses of morphine because he was just, you know, getting frantic, and it was sad. And we knew he was in the dying process. So it was to alleviate his anxiety and probably his pain as well. So, but I'm really sorry, Margaret. I hope... So then your mom ended up dying?
Right, and she was being given morphine for the pain, and that's what I just didn't understand. She was given the morphine that was helping with the pain, and I feel that she was just requiring more attention that they were able to give. And I stayed over one night, and I knew everything that was going on, and I would try to make these changes. And I'm at peace with myself now. I did talk to 2 priests about wanting to bring her home because I struggled. My mom did not want to go to a nursing home, and she knew what was going to happen. But everything happened so fast, and I tell everybody that I do get a chance to talk to if they question me, because I found that I was just telling everybody, and then I thought, well, I shouldn't be naming people, and I know that hospice can be good and nursing homes can be good for certain situations, and and I didn't want to belittle anybody. I just
you did the best you could. You did the best you could, and that's the most important thing. And I'm sorry it worked out that way, but you know, now you've learned things, and this is important for all of us to learn. And you know, I'm very sorry. God bless you, dear heart.
Thank you. God bless you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Next stop, Fairborn, Ohio. Don, listening on St. Gabriel Radio, AM 820. Don, thanks for calling. You're on with Barbara McGuigan.
Hi, Don.
Hi, Barbara.
How can we help?
Yeah, my daughter Anna is 38 years old, and she's multi-handicapped, and we found out in June that she was supposed to be. She has a leaking heart valve.
Oh.
We took her to one lady cardiologist who was very nice, and she said, if it was my daughter, I wouldn't do anything at the present time. We took her to another cardiologist at a university here in Ohio, and he essentially said the same thing. I don't feel that they've given me a bad diagnosis, if you pardon me putting it that way. I love her with all my heart, and I would die for her, but I think they feel that if she had the open heart surgery,
yes,
that it would be too much of a trauma for her. And also the thing is that if something didn't go well as far as the surgery was concerned, or something was not right, Anna wouldn't be able to tell me. So, I talked to our Catholic chaplain at the Air Force Base at Wright Pat, and he basically felt that under the present circumstances that we're probably doing the right thing.
Well, and okay, you're doing your best to make a good discernment there, and it appears that you really are. Open heart surgery, and I'm familiar with this because my husband went through this 3 years ago. It is quite a surgery. I mean, they do it all day long. It's not that it's anything new, but boy, when you're on that heart and lung machine and they're working on your heart on the side table, I mean, it's an ominous thing to go through for someone. And my husband's a big dude, and I mean, it just reduced him to rubble for weeks, months, even afterwards. And so I can see where they would think that your little daughter, it would just be overwhelming and too much, and painful too. And then the drugs that they're on. My husband's on 7 medications to this day. And there's so many side effects from all of the drugs as well. So, Don, God love you, and thank you for calling in with this. And it sure appears that you certainly did do the right thing. And God and the Holy Spirit advised you. You talked to your Catholic chaplain. You did everything you could.
But also I wanted to mention that Anna was born almost 2 months premature. And but we loved her from the start. And the first doctor we saw said put her in an institution, but Pamela says no way.
Right. Good for you. Oh, God love you. And now she's 38. I mean, that's
she's 38,
a good long time.
And
yes.
she's a joy. She has her moments, but we love her like crazy.
Don't we all, Don?
And don't we all?
So I just asked for prayers for my Anna, and
of course.
Thank you for the good things that you do.
Oh, well, God bless you, Don. All glory to God, and thank you for being such a good father.
Okay, thanks so much.
All righty, bye-bye.
We've still got a couple phone lines open for you at 1-800-585-9396. That's toll-free anywhere in North America, 1-800-585-9396 with your questions or comments for our pro-life warrior, Barbara McGuigan.
The inspirational work of premier Christian sculptor Timothy Smalls can be seen in religious monuments worldwide. Next time he shares his devotion to creating artwork that glorifies Christ.
Plus, we'll answer your calls, emails, and tweets.
Next time on At Home with Jim and Joy on EWTN.
At Home with Jim and Joy is seen around the world on EWTN television. For dates and times in your area, go to EWTN.com.
60 Seconds with Mother Angelica.
The good news is that as we struggle and God pours grace into us and we correspond and we rise and we fall, rise and fall, God in His infinite mercy loves us, keeps us going, gives us strength and courage and joy. Joy. Be joyful. Go on, smile. It won't hurt you, even if you got a problem. Even if you got a problem, smile at your neighbor. I want you to remember a little sentence, and the sentence is this. You may be the only Jesus your neighbor will ever see. I want you to know your dignity. I want you to know how great you are before God.
The people you know and trust are on EWTN.
Tomorrow on EWTN Radio's Open Line, Father Mitch Pacwa takes your calls about the Bible, the Church, and the writings of the Pope. 3 p.m. Eastern on EWTN Radio.
Hello, this is Archbishop Joseph Tobin of the Archdiocese of Indianapolis. You're listening to EWTN, the Global Catholic Radio Network.
This is Open Line on the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network. If you have a question or comment, call 1-800-585-9396. Outside North America, call 1-205-271-2985 or send an email to openline@ewtn.com.
Entering the home stretch on an Open Line Tuesday with Barbara McGuigan. Next stop, the great state of Indiana. Betty, listening on Redeemer Radio. Betty, you're on with Barbara McGuigan.
Hi, Betty.
Oh, hi. Hi, Barbara. How are you?
Great, thanks. What can we do for you?
Good. Well, I just had a thought. You were talking about how would we talk to people who were for euthanasia or assisted suicide.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought about, a comparison, like there's God's constant law versus man's whimsical law.
Amen. Good thinking.
Yeah. And I thought, if you have a constant law, that's a moral law, then you know what you're looking at. If you have a whimsical law, then you're working with doubt, people of doubt, people who confusion, those kinds of thought patterns.
Yes.
And so if I was speaking to someone who felt that way, I would want to look at them and say, would you want someone who was confused to make a decision about how you live your life or how you don't live your life? Does that make sense?
It makes good sense. It makes very good sense. And it's wonderful to think you would be good to discuss this with someone, because that is what this whole assisted suicide, euthanasia push is really all about. The government will be able to call your death. This is basically bottom line. Hey, maybe it's way down the line. Who knows? But we might be surprised, put it that way. And that's why we need to be concerned about how laws like what just passed in California affects the weakest and the most vulnerable people. Because many people can say that they want to die, but even among those with terminal illness, it's a cry for help. Maybe they are completely lonely. Maybe, if you ask me, and this is just my opinion, maybe God has never been brought to them. Maybe they don't know who God is. Maybe they don't understand suffering. Maybe they don't understand because they've never been taught that suffering is meaningful. I look at Pope St. John Paul II. He didn't need to take a feeding tube, but Terry Schiavo was being starved to death when they pulled hers, right? And so he wanted to be in solidarity with Terry Schiavo. But then, he didn't have to take that. He was in the dying process. That would have been extraordinary measures on his part. But he wanted to suffer with Terry Schiavo. So the whole thing is, we have to, if your mind is not formed in what is good and true and holy, if you don't know who God is and who the Son of God, Jesus Christ, who the Holy Spirit is, then suffering makes no sense. And I'll tell you something, suicide causes incredible pain on a family. My father-in-law blew his brains out with a shotgun because he was not going to suffer. He wasn't suffering. I was taking him, my husband was taking him to go to have, he needed radiation at that point because his lung cancer had metastasized to his brain. And so they were just trying to reduce the size of the tumors in his brain. He was in no pain whatsoever. But you see, God loved him. He didn't trust. He didn't trust what God was trying to help him with and what could be done. And oh, goodness. It was a nightmare for our family. He was a good man, a brilliant man, but he was so brilliant that he intellectualized God out of his life. He didn't understand that suffering is the heat that melts us into Christ. He just didn't get that, and he was not going to suffer. So there's so much to this, Gloria, and thank you. I didn't mean to go off on this whole thing, but Betty, but you are just so right that you need to try to talk to people, and we all surely did try to talk to him. We surely did.
Thanks so much, Betty. Appreciate the phone call. Beth is in Blountstown, Florida, listening on FM 102.7. Beth, you're on with Barbara McGuigan.
Hi, Beth.
Hello, Barbara.
Hi.
I want to say first off that I absolutely love your laugh. It's just awesome.
Well, thank you. Sometimes there isn't a whole lot to laugh about, but you know what? If you love God, there is something to laugh about. Oh, sure.
Yeah. What I wanted to say was I am very sad. I have actually wanted to cry during this program because there are so many people out there that are hurting, and I have a husband who is, he's elderly, and I guess I would be considered that by the normal humans here because I'm younger, but I'm in my 60s. So we are working as a team, and both of us are totally blind, but I am his caregiver because he does move very slowly. Thankfully, he is ambulatory, and he just had skin cancer surgery, so we do have help with that, and he is doing quite well. But I don't understand these people that want to get rid of people that, you know, and he told me one time, he said, I don't want to go into a nursing home. I don't like hospitals. He said, you take care of me better than anybody does.
Oh, yes.
And we do. We are very, we love each other, and we've been married almost 41 years.
Yep. And you see, that's beautiful. Your testimony is so valuable, especially now, because the family, you are his family, okay? And as St. John Paul said, the family is the sanctuary of life, where all life is welcomed, accepted, loved, taken care of in sickness, which is what you're doing. And anyone who is opposed to this, to what you are doing, Beth, anyone who systematically tries to prevent this, like they did in the state of California, and it was shady the way they worked it out too, is not of God. You cannot be of God and be opposed to welcoming, accepting, loving, and taking care of in sickness all human life. Because this is what we are called to do. This is it. This is how you die with true dignity and humility. Surrounded by love. My dad was surrounded with his 11 kids. We were all driving him nuts, trying to do this and that for him, and he just wanted to rest, right? You are the witness. You are the witness to life, Beth. And we all hold you up. We lift you up, dear lady. You are wonderful, and so is your dear, sweet husband.
We do need all the prayer we can get.
Sure. And we'll make sure you get some, Beth. We'll make sure, won't we, Jack?
Absolutely. You know that all of our listeners will be praying for you, too. God bless you, Beth. Let's head quickly to Boise, Idaho. Gloria, listening on Salt and Light, AM 1140. Gloria, what's your question or comment for Barbara?
Hi, Gloria.
Hi, Barbara.
Hi.
My comment, I have two of them, really. I took care of my mother when she was 80 years old, and I moved her into my house, and I cared for her. There are 9 children in my family, and I did have to put her in a nursing home for a while because of the desire of most of the family. Mm-hmm. But then I ended up bringing her home and taking care of her for 8 years. But the one thing my mother taught me was that you can have a happy death.
Sure.
You can have a happy, loving, caring death. And death, we forget to look at the miracle of death. Amen. We look at the miracle of life all the time. Mm-hmm. And we ooh and ah when a baby is born. Yes. So we have to remember the miracle of death when somebody dies and gets to go meet Jesus.
Amen.
And it's in the suffering that they do that they are very strong contributors to our Catholic community, to our country, for all of us.
Oh, amen. You are so right. I mean, how many times have we looked at pictures of the Sacred Heart and our Blessed Mother? How many times have we looked at those, and now we know on our deathbeds that, and we're going to pray, we're going to make sure we lived well so we can die well, and then we realize that one day we are going to face him. We are going to look at the Sacred Heart of Jesus face to face. We are going to see his heart. It's not a stagnant, cold heart. It will be pulsating in his chest. I mean, to me, and you are so right, and I'm so glad you called with this, Gloria, because we forget to look at the miracle of death. We're just passing on. We're only passing through here on this mud ball. We're just passing through. God is giving us a chance to know, love, and serve him in this life so that we can be with him forever in heaven. It's a beautiful thing. My goodness, it's a beautiful thing. And thank you for that great call.
Thanks so much. Appreciate that phone call. We'll head to Alexandria, Virginia. Katie is listening in Alexandria. Katie, you're on with Barbara McGuigan.
Hi, Katie.
Hi, both of you. That my phone call just kind of healed me.
Oh.
Yeah. I wanted to chime in with Val who called with the best.
Katie, I'm sorry. I'm having a hard time hearing you. I can barely hear you.
Is this any better?
Oh, that's much better. That's much better,
Okay,
yes.
good. Getting used to this microphone on the phone. Thanks for telling me.
Sure.
The gal who phoned in with a hospice story,
yeah,
it's more common than I care to admit. I had a similar story. My mom went home to be with the Lord in June of 2013, and I consider hospice to have been homicidal in her death. She was given morphine that she did not need. She had heart problems. She wasn't in any pain. She was given morphine for same phrase they use, to make her comfortable. That's a hospice phrase, to make her comfortable. Well, we watched her be comfortable with Xanax if she would get uptight and her breathing would bother her a little.
You know what, Katie? We're going to have to close the show, dear heart. You can call back next Tuesday, right, Jack, if she wants to?
Absolutely. We appreciate
can talk
that phone
about
call,
it
Katie.
more.
Barbara,
Yes.
thanks so much for your time. We'll do it again
Sure.
next week. On behalf of our host, Barbara McGuigan, our producer, Elena Rodriguez, and our call screener, Matt Gavinsky, I'm Jack Williams, thanking you once again for tuning in to this wonderful edition of Open Line Tuesday. Back at it tomorrow with Open Line Wednesday. Father Mitch Pacwa will be in the house. Until we get together then, God bless.